the beautiful Atlantic Ocean. This, well, it's about as far west as the World Rally Championship will come in 2021. We're in the coastal town of Nazare, and as you can see over my shoulder, this lighthouse, well, a few years ago, some very brave surfers rode, would you believe, the world's biggest wave. 80 foot that wave was. But there is a sport that's been making even bigger waves in this part of the world for a very long time. There's a tremendous history for rallying here in the northern part of Portugal. And David, it does go back a long way.
It does, Colin. It goes all the way back to 1967. That was the first TAP International Rally, as it was then known. TAP, obviously the national airline, was the initial sponsor of the event. The driving force behind this rally was a man called Cesar Torres. At the time, vice president of FISA, quite a politically driven man, but a real mastermind of how to keep these events running. 1974, we had the oil crisis, so we'd already lost Monte Carlo, we lost Sweden. This, I think, was the first round. It spoke volumes about Torres' influence that he was able to secure the fuel to keep this rally running in that season. If we're talking about iconic stages on a Rally of Portugal, we have to talk about this place, Arganil. 1980, 41 years ago, Walter Röhrl put this place into the legend of this rally by beating his rivals by 4 minutes. He committed this stage to memory. In 26 miles, 42 kilometres through the fog, he drove brilliantly and obliterated his rivals. Later that year, went on to become world champion.
Well, over the years, Rally of Portugal has given us some of the most iconic photographs in rallying, and really none more so than this one. Just look at the 205 T16 powering its way around what was then a gravel left-hander. The fans clinging on to the cross on top of this church, lining the walls of the stage. But listen, it's not just iconic photographs. Rally Portugal has given us some of the most iconic stages. Rally Portugal has justifiably got an awful lot to be proud of. But David, if we are being honest, we have to say the event has a bit of a checkered history.
Oh, of course it does, Colin. You can't ignore what happened here in 86. From 73 to 86, the event had grown even more in terms of popularity. Hundreds of thousands of people pouring into the stages to watch what was then, one of the nation's biggest sporting events. In 1986, Joaquim dos Santos lost control of his Ford RS200, ploughed into a crowd, 2 dead at the scene, more died later in hospital. It was a huge tragedy for the sport. It was a step towards the sport losing Group B. It was also a part where people questioned the future of this event.
But David, the event very much did continue, and I suppose, well, a lot of that was down to the governance of one man, to Cesar Torres.
Of course it was, Colin. I think it's fair to say at the time there were a few people that were surprised that the event came back straight away, but it's a demonstration of his standing within the governing body of world motorsport at that time. And immediately you look into 1987 and we had a much more positive story. Carlos Sainz arrives in the World Rally Championship and what? He's fastest on his first ever stage in 87. Great story, and that Carlos story that continues through into 1991 when it was him that ended Lancia's incredible run of victories on this event when Carlos took victory for Toyota here. A couple of years later, we've got Francois Delacour winning in the Escort Cosworth for the first time. Go down a few more years and there's that incredible story with Richard Burns in arguably the best ever Subaru Impreza made by ProDrive when he won in 2000 in a car that was, they reckoned, a second a kilometre quicker than anything that had gone before it. So amazing. Unfortunately, in 2001, things changed again when the rains arrived in this part of the world, and it was one of the most complicated and difficult events to organise. And the event was lost from the championship for 6 years. It came back in 2007, but in a very different form. It was down in the Algarve. And that was, you know, the move down south was pivotal. They had to take this event away from the huge number of spectators that you get from cities like Porto and Lisbon. 2010, Sebastian Ogier's first victory, you know, another pivotal moment centred on in Portugal. And finally, we've come back to the actual heartland of where this rally belongs, you know, the areas like Sintra, Arganil, Faf. It's where we should be, and it's where Rally of Portugal belongs.
Well, as we've seen over the years at Rally Portugal, there's been tragedy, there's been heartache, there's been drama, there's been absolute brilliance from some of the very best drivers in the world on some of the very best stages in the world. The rally has now re-established itself here in the northern heartland. The one thing that stayed constant, well, it's these folk, the most magnificent, knowledgeable, passionate rally fans in the world. Long may Rally Portugal live on the WRC calendar.